Hello, everybody, and welcome along to Below the 38, our weekly podcast on Korean baseball, football, and adventures in South Korea. This is our preview show for K-League 1 Weekend 3. We've already made it as far as the third weekend of the season, and I believe this may be the seventh podcast we've put out so far. If you go through our YouTube channel, you will see a podcast with Luke, myself, Andrew, and Mike, and we were reviewing the previous weekend's football in K-League 1 and K-League 2. On this particular episode, it's just Luke and I, and we are here to preview the upcoming K-League 1 weekend. Hi, Luke.
Hello. Good evening.
Good. You gave yourself a week off, as we discussed on the podcast earlier on this week. That is not going to be the case this week. You're off on a nice adventure south. We'll absolutely get onto that in a second. Looking forward to hearing what your thoughts are and all that. But just don't forget, we are at Below the 38th, and you can find us on YouTube, Instagram, and YouTube, Twitter, of course, X. So we have videos up on our YouTube account. I posted something up at the weekend about a trip to Anyang, and Mike posted some videos from his weekend in Ansan, I think it was, Ansan and Bucheon, and then Luke and Mike posted some videos themselves of their visit to Sungwi Arena for the Gyeonggi Derby to start the season. So I think it's fair to say our YouTube channel is beginning to kick into a bit of gear at the moment. So at Below the 38, you will find us on Instagram, Twitter, and of course here on YouTube. So before we have a look at predictions and have a look at the table and how we're feeling about how K-League 1 is going so far, let's have a look at the upcoming fixtures. This is always a fun part to see what game is worth looking out for. Sometimes I think we do a good job of predicting which game is going to be the most interesting one. The weekend starts on Saturday, 2 o'clock. It's Gwangju versus Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors, the Gwangju World Cup Stadium. This is actually a repeat of the 2025 Korea Cup final, but a lot has changed since then. Both teams are under new management. There's obviously a huge amount of player departures, especially from Gwangju. Jeonbuk are arguably stronger now than they were at the time of the FA Cup, and yet saying that, Gwangju have settled really quickly under new management. They have 4 points from a possible 6. Whereas Jeonbuk have 1 point from a possible 6, and they needed a Bruno Mata late equaliser to avoid back-to-back defeats. So that's the first game of the weekend, is Gwangju versus Jeonbuk at 2 o'clock from the Gwangju World Cup Stadium. Immediately after that, we have Daejeon and Citizen versus Gimcheon Sangmu, 4:30 in Daejeon. This is a match between two teams that have actually yet to win. They've also not lost a game yet. Both sides have drawn their opening 2 games. Daejeon, in particular, will probably be a little bit disappointed with how their season has started. They drew at home to Anyang and then away to New Boys Bucheon FC 1995. Gimcheon, it's hard to know what to make of them because we know they're being relegated irrespective of how they do this season. So it feels like the pressure is all on Daejeon in that one. And then the last preview for me is the first game on Sunday, 2 o'clock. It's Bucheon, those guys again, the new boys in K-League 1 against Ulsan HD. Ulsan have only had one game so far because of Champions League fixture congestion, shall we say. Bucheon are already in bonus territory, I would say, Luke. 4 points from 6 is a great start. If it ends up being 4 points from 9, I don't think they'd be complaining too much, but I wouldn't be surprised if they nicked something out of this game.
Yeah, they've been playing really well. And I think the players haven't been overawed by the fact that they've stepped up to K-League 1. They're up for the challenge. They're fighting for everything. And they've been very good in both of their games so far. But we can talk about that in a little while. So, following on from Bucheon versus Ulsan, we have Jeju versus Seoul. It's Jeju's home game, so it's Seoul's second away game of 3 to start the season until Seoul World Cup Stadium is ready. They had last weekend off, Seoul, but they have lost this week, midweek, in the ACL to Kobe, Vissel Kobe, and that game was in Japan. So right now the Seoul team are probably travelling back and they'll have to get ready for their away game in Jeju. Seoul won their opening game against Incheon. Jeju have drawn with Gwangju at home in the opening fixture, and then they lost late on to Anyang last weekend. So Jeju desperately in need of a win. Seoul will be looking to pick up where they left off against Incheon. Following that, we have Gangwon versus Anyang. Again, Gangwon also had the weekend off. They're technically bottom following their opening day defeat to Ulsan, but that's on goals scored, which I've always been a big proponent of. I've always supported this idea of teams who score more being above other teams. Anyang is second. They've got a draw and a win, and they've made it a really good start. The final game of the weekend is Pohang versus Incheon. Incheon without a win. They are struggling for form. They're struggling to put in good performances, and the backline is looking quite nervy at times, which is in contrast to last year, when Incheon's backline was probably one of the reasons why Incheon did so well. Pohang have only played one game. They drew 1-1 with Gimcheon. So they'll look to try and improve on that. I would expect that Pohang will be looking for a win this weekend. I think they'll expect to beat Incheon. Incheon will probably be happy with a draw. I know I would be happy with a draw, travelling down to Pohang.
Yeah, so that's the game Luke is going to, and I'm pretty sure he's going to touch on that a little bit later on in this podcast. Just now we've read out the fixtures. Might as well have a quick look at the table. Why not? Nobody at the moment has a full 6 points from 2 games played, but again, as we said before, some of these teams have only actually played once, so there's an unfamiliar look to the top of K-League 1. It's fair to say Bucheon FC 1995 are top on goals scored, ahead of Anyang and Gwangju. Hands up anybody listening who predicted that after 2 rounds of the season. Again, it's too early in the season, obviously, to make any grand predictions, but the foot of the table is made up by Incheon, who have scored more goals than Gangwon, who, unfortunately for them, have played a game less. So if the season were to end tonight, then Gangwon would be in the relegation playoff. They wouldn't even be going down automatically, thanks to Gimcheon. Gimcheon could have gone top, by the way, at the weekend, but because they drew in the last minute against Jeonbuk, they're in mid-table. They're getting relegated no matter what. So make it that what you wish. We talked about it before. It's very strange, but you can listen back to last week's podcast or the opening or preview podcast to find out what we think about that. Which game attracts you then, Luke? I know you're going to Pohang versus Incheon. Is this the match that you're looking out for? Like, as a neutral, you'd be looking out for the most?
As a neutral, I think the Bucheon versus Ulsan game offers a bit more. Ulsan traditionally are a really big club. They're bankrolled by Hyundai. They've been struggling like last year, but generally you would expect Ulsan to have enough to win. However, Bucheon went to Jeonbuk, and they won. They could have beaten Daejeon in the last minute, and now they're facing Ulsan. So if you look at it on paper, their opening 3 games are probably the 3 most difficult games of the season against the 3 highest spending clubs. Nobody would have expected them to start as well as they have. And if they can get anything this weekend, as you said, it would be a bonus. I wouldn't actually put it past Bucheon to win this game. I think Ulsan, they did win on the opening day against Gangwon, but generally speaking, Ulsan have been quite shaky. It wouldn't surprise me if Bucheon came out of this with at least a point, if not a win.
Oh, that'd be wild, wouldn't it?
Amazing.
Oh, I really hope that happens.
It's what you love to see. Imagine. Underdogs.
Yeah. Especially that's and like the contrast to the stadiums too, because I know you've been to them as well, and you've Ulsan Munsu Stadium, just a classic World Cup stadium. There's no running track. It's just a rectangular stadium. It's nice. It's very pleasant. It's not in a great part of town, but it's a perfectly fine stadium. Bucheon, the old stadium within a stadium thing that we see a lot in Korean football. They have a running track. The stadium is too big, about 36,000 people. So they added 2 temporary stands to minimize the impact of the running track, and they've done a good job. They've done as good as they possibly could. So it's one of the many things that would highlight the enormous differences between the 2 clubs. Bucheon, city owned, Ulsan, Hyundai owned. Vast difference in trophies and wealth, the quality of the players. So yeah, like if Bucheon could turn over Ulsan and they go top of the table with 7 points from a possible 9, fairy tale stuff. Absolutely fairy tale stuff. I'm looking forward to the game I mentioned earlier on. It's the Jolla Derby between Gwangju and Jeonbuk. I probably wouldn't have expected to say this, but Jeonbuk have had a surprisingly difficult start to the season under new management. Gus Poyet is gone, as you're probably all aware at this point. Chung Jung-young is in charge. He was amazing with Gimcheon for the last couple of seasons. delivered a title challenging team. They finished well short of Jeonbuk last season, but for a while they looked like a title challenging team. Lee Jong-gyu is now the manager of Gwangju FC. He's taken over from the famous other Mr. Lee, who's now with the Suwon Blue Wings. And the Suwon Blue Wings absolutely adore Lee Jong-yo. So Lee Jong-gyu is the manager now at Gwangju, and they've had a good start. Like, it didn't look too promising when they drew in Jeju on the opening weekend, because they played against 10 men for about 60 odd minutes, but they recorded a good win against Incheon at the weekend. And I was looking at the stats of this. Like, not only is there potential payback for the FA Cup final, and there was obviously some antics involving one very famous Korean football player, shall we say, that saw cards being brandished. But according to Transfermarkt, Gwangju are valued at €4.2 million. €4.2 million. Jeonbuk Hyundai's transfer value is currently €16.25 million. So Jeonbuk are about 4 times bigger than Gwangju. Gwangju are currently ahead of Jeonbuk in the table. If it stays that way by Saturday by about 5 o'clock, that would be amazing. But I can't see it. I think Jeonbuk are going to roll into town and take all 3 points.
Yeah, I imagine so. Although I expected them to win their opening game, I've expected them to win every game that they've played, because they are so much better on paper than a lot of the teams in this league. However, football isn't played on paper, is it? You have to turn up, and you've got a lot of big names and a lot of people trying to fit into certain positions. The new manager's trying to get the best out of his squad. Maybe he doesn't himself know his best 11 yet. But yeah, on paper, you'd expect it to be a Jeonbuk win. But we will see.
So you're going to a game. I'll let you kick this part off, because I'm not sure I'm going to be able to get to a game this weekend, just because of family commitments. I will talk about that, which game I'm potentially going to go to after you're done. But like, you're going to a big one, and it's as far as I know, it's a first time experience for you. So tell us all about the Pohang Steel Yard.
Yeah, so I'm going to Pohang on Sunday. I've been looking to go there for a few years now, and it's just the games haven't quite lined up with transport. I've wanted to go, but finally I'm getting to go to this game. It's Sunday at 4:30. To get there, I'm taking a train down, but I understand that the train station is quite a distance from the stadium. And then after the game, the train that would get me back home arrives after the subway finishes. So I'm going to be taking a plane back. And then I'll probably plant some trees to offset my carbon footprint. But yeah, I've not been to the game, not been to the stadium before. I'm looking forward to it. On TV, it always looks pretty full. It looks pretty fun, and it's one of those stadiums that you're close to the pitch. It's like a Daegu stadium. It's like an Incheon stadium. It's a real football stadium, which is always a bonus in Korea when you've been doing the running tracks of Mokdong. Yeah, no, I'm very excited. I'm not as optimistic about the game as much as I am the day out. If we can get anything from the game, I'll take it. But I'm not optimistic. Let's just hope, I guess.
Yeah, the Pohang Steel Yard is amazing. I've been there a few times, probably 3, I think, and it's difficult enough to get to because the Pohang's too small to have a subway, so you have to take public transport to get to the stadium over the Pohang River, and it tends to be chock-a-block on that road. So the other alternative is to walk, which is the one I recommend doing if you have any extra time, because I think that you might be coming from the wrong side anyway, but sometimes the traffic has to stop because a freight train goes by because of all the enormous POSCO plants that are dotted around the stadium. It's very atmospheric, different type of atmospheric ground that you see traditionally in Korea. The stadium down in Gwanyang, the home of Jeonbuk and Dragons, is similar enough in terms of its location. But I also love how it's a double tiered stadium, but it only holds about 16,000. So the tiers are obviously not very big, but if you're at the back of the lower tier, the upper tier hangs down so much that you can barely make out the stand on the opposite side. You'll be able to see the pitch, but you can barely make that stand. It's so cramped, so crowded down there, but it's just brilliant. And the trees, the branches of the trees are coming in through the walls of the stadium. There's nowhere. I don't think there's anywhere like it. worryingly, they're talking about building a new stadium, and I'll ask for your thoughts on that maybe next week's show when you've been to the Pohang Steel Yard. And do you think Pohang need a new stadium or not? I'd love to know what you think about that when you get back from Pohang. I'm hoping to go to Bucheon. Yeah, I'm hoping to go to Bucheon versus Ulsan on Sunday. Last time I saw Bucheon, they had beaten Suwon FC to go up to K-League 1 for the first time, and that was really cool to be there with the fans that day. And I missed their season opener in Jeonju. I missed their home opener, so I'd love to go see them against Ulsan, because like you, I think there's a you just get the feeling that there's something special brewing this weekend in Bucheon. I don't think they're going to have a great season, but I think they're going to have a really good start to the season. And I'd love to be there to see them nab a draw or even better, come out of that with 3 points. So possibility I'll go to Bucheon on Sunday. And if I do, I'll let you know about it on next week's podcast. But for now, it's a maybe, unfortunately. So enjoy your trip to Pohang. You're going to have a great time. And you never know, maybe Santa is going to come a little bit late this year and have 3 points for you under the tree.
I'll take it.
You want to, yeah, we always talk about a talking point, like a potential talking point that people who are watching these matches might want to look out for. I think you're staying on the theme of Incheon, are you?
Kind of, but I'm also bringing Jeju and Gangwon into this, which is perhaps unfair because Gangwon have only played one game. But with Bucheon doing so well, and I know there's not any immediate risk of relegation because the bottom place team, if it's not Gimcheon, will be in a playoff. But if Incheon don't start picking up points, if Jeju don't start picking up more points, I can definitely see teams moving ahead and people getting cut off.
Okay.
Everybody expected this year for either Gwangju or Bucheon to end up rock bottom and be struggling, and it doesn't look like it's going to turn out that way. So I think there's always one team that gets cut off. Last year it was Daegu, a few years ago it was Incheon, and I think it's going to be a case of whoever doesn't pick up a proper win soon could end up being that team. And this year it's quite weird because there isn't the immediate jeopardy of going down, but you don't want to finish bottom of the league and end up in a playoff with somebody who's been winning all season, because that sort of momentum of winning and winning and winning, even if you finish 4th or 5th in K-League 2, you've had a good season against very good teams. Compared to somebody who's bottom, like the team who's bottom could definitely go down if they're out of the practice of actually winning games. I'm not sure. Like, I don't know, looking at the fixtures in the next few weeks, where Incheon's wins are going to come from. We have Daejeon midweek. We have Anyang coming up. And you just kind of wonder, like, what is the game where we'll actually pick up a win? I don't expect us to win this weekend. I don't think we'll beat Daejeon, because even as much as Daejeon have been dropping points and conceding goals, like, Incheon's defence looks incredibly shaky. And it's worrying. It's already worrying. Looking forward through the fixtures, we've got an international break in a few weeks at the end of March. But after the Pohang game, there's the Daejeon game, and then there's the Anyang game. We're away at Anyang. I don't see us going to Anyang and winning. So we could be looking at April before Incheon even get a win. Will it be April before Incheon manage a point? It's worrying. And I think one of the problems is that we've been conceding sloppy goals, but also we're not creating chances. People have highlighted that Magosa and Jerso are getting older and that we perhaps need somebody coming through to take some of the pressure off Magosa particularly. But yeah, goals win games, and if you're struggling to score, you're not going to win.
When that makes a lot of sense when you look at their upcoming fixtures. When the build up to the Seoul game, was this on your mind too? Like, I'm guessing you didn't expect them to lose in Gwangju, and then suddenly when you look at the form of other teams, then it's not a case of just like Monday morning quarterback, whatever. Obviously, some of the teams are playing better than maybe we'd anticipated, and Incheon haven't picked up points we're expecting to. Did it look like a difficult start to the season in the lead up to the first game, or is it just felt this way because of the start?
Well, I was kind of surprised when people from within Incheon, the club itself, were talking about top half finishers and ACL. I think I said on the earlier podcast, I've definitely tweeted that I would be surprised if Incheon finished in the top half, and that as things stood before a ball was kicked, I would take 7th or 8th. This year was almost a free hit. Just don't finish bottom and you're fine. And it would be disastrous if Incheon were to finish bottom. I'm not sure. I thought the Seoul game would be very difficult. I didn't expect to win it, but I would have liked a draw. I would have liked a better performance. Because for spells of the game, we had a lot of the ball, but we never really created anything with it. When you look back at the games that we've played, the 2 games we've played, we've not had a lot of close opportunities. We've had goals that have come out of nothing. Particularly Oh Hoo-sung at the weekend. His goal, the ball dropped to him after a mistake in the Gwangju backline and he fired home. But Incheon aren't necessarily creating anything, which is also worrying. I think there have been players brought in to be creative who are not yet up to speed. And there are players who are getting game time perhaps, and they're not contributing as much as people would have expected. Yeah, it's worrying because you need to have a strong mentality when things aren't going well. You need to turn it around, and you look to your leaders to do that. And it's worrying that sort of, I don't know. We'll see. It's only 2 games into the season, but if we lose heavily at the weekend, people will start asking more questions. If it's a tight game and we lose, it might paper over cracks. If we draw, then maybe I'm talking nonsense.
Right. Well, look, if you want any other reason to make sure you tune in for our the weekend that was next week, either Monday or Tuesday next week, there you have it. Will Luke be talking nonsense, yes or no? Let's find out. Well, look, all the best. I genuinely all the best to you on your trip to Pohang, not just in terms of the trip, but also in terms of the 90 minutes of football. I don't really have a huge amount to look forward to this week, or look out for this weekend. That's a little bit different. I just find it weird that it's unavoidable, I guess, but the table makes for weird viewing because 4 of the teams only played 1 match, and I wonder what the mindset is like at those clubs where you're off for 2 or so months and you're doing your pre-season, and then everybody's all geared up for the opening match of the season, and then suddenly you have a 2-week gap again before you play another league match. And out of the 4 teams that have only played 1 match, with all due respect to Incheon, I think Pohang are the one that will probably feel a little bit more comfortable than the others. They're playing Incheon at home, but Gangwon have Anyang at home. That's not going to be easy. Anyang have started well. They're obviously a good team. Ulsan, I don't think they're going to fancy that trip to Bucheon. And even though Jeju were beaten with the last play of the game against Anyang, they were pretty good for most of those 96, 97 odd minutes. It's a very tough game for Seoul to go to, and they have been embarrassed in Seolkepo before, especially under Kim Gi-dong as manager. So yeah, just interested to see how I'd love to know. I'd love to ask the players, what do they think of this? Like, you get all geared up for the start of the season. The winters are long. The winters are brutal here, and then suddenly you're kind of sitting at home while everybody else is still playing. And I think just to compound that, there's an international break coming up, as you mentioned. So they're going to get another break from that. And maybe their bodies will thank them for this come November. But at the moment, it's just, I'd much rather be in a situation that Anyang, Gwangju, and Bucheon are in, that they play 2 matches, they're unbeaten at the top of the table. And again, maybe I'm talking complete nonsense, and the 4 teams with 1 game will go on and win comfortably this weekend, and there'll be absolutely nothing to worry about. So
I don't know. I just wonder, is it necessary for ACL teams playing an away game in Japan to have a week off from K-League? Could they not do what European teams do and play Saturday lunchtime, Saturday 2 o'clock, and then play Sunday afternoon? I mean, it's a 2-hour flight. If you're flying to Jeju for an away game, it's only a 1.5-hour flight or a 1-hour flight. Is it necessary for them to have a week's break from K-League? I don't understand that, because it just adds fixtures further on later on in the season. The international break, I think that's when Gangwon are playing their catch-up game, which means if either team have international players, they'll not be available.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is it necessary? That's another question, I think. Is it necessary for ACL clubs to have an additional week off just because they don't want to play weekend, midweek, weekend. When it's in Japan, it's a game in Japan. It's not like they're playing in the Middle East or they're playing in Thailand and it's a 6-hour flight.
Yeah, and as I said, like, it's also the start of the season. Like, the players are obviously going to be incredibly fresh right now. This is probably the best time to chuck in an extra fixture or two, as opposed to doing it in August, September. We're running out of time here, but I was just interested. I'll let you have the final word on this one. Then there's been another racism scandal, unfortunately, after the opening round of the season. This time involving Italo of Jeju SK. We saw something similar last season with Bruno Mata, and it's not confined to just Korea. This is obviously a global issue. Players receiving disgusting messages on social media. Do you think more could be done? Would you like to see more done, or do the authorities have their hands kind of tied behind their back in this? What's your feeling on this overall in terms of what could be done to try and eradicate this problem?
I think the authorities and clubs really do need to trace who sent the messages, because it's fairly frequent. It's at least once a season that we find there's some form of racist messaging happening towards foreign players in K-League. And it's not a foreigners versus Koreans thing. It's not a Korea-specific problem. It is a worldwide problem, but I think more needs to be done when it does happen. You can only control what happens in your league or in your country. And if this happens here in this league, then I think the club did well in putting out a message of support, but they also need to back that up with finding out who sent the messages. Because, I mean, how many Jeju fans are there actually realistically? For somebody to send that message, it's likely somebody who goes to games or somebody who has some form of Jeju mention on their profile. It's not like we're looking at Manchester United and they're a worldwide, like a famous club worldwide, and they have millions and millions of fans. It's a fairly small group of fans, and it's one person within that small group. There should be a way to find out who it is, and then hopefully they can be dealt with by the appropriate authorities. But whether that will happen, we'll have to wait and see. But there should be punishment for the individual.
Yeah, getting tired of this stuff too. It's I mean, last season I remember Mata was one of the videos of him crying in the dressing room after he missed a penalty. In Gwangju, it's grim. It's just grim that now in 2026 people still are subjected to this absolute nonsense. So, yes, really strict punishment, I would have thought, is the only way to clamp down on this, and hopefully even greater support from the clubs, like even more support from teammates, maybe wearing jerseys with the player's number at the back while they're warming up, or just something like this. If the players and the management go a little bit further to say how much we absolutely despise this, then I'm not sure how much of a difference it will make, but at least it will send out some sort of a message. So hopefully this is the last time we talk about this in 2026. Hopefully. Let's see if it is. Look, we've gone to 28 minutes. We've always tried to keep these around by 15, but had a good chat, and I'm excited to see how you get on in Pohang this weekend. So from Luke and myself, Andrew, thanks for tuning in. Check out the K-League 2 podcast. It should be in your news feed as well, either today or tomorrow. And we'll talk to you again next week. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.